So the reason why I always came back to Australia to do a business and to cook is because we have the best standard of living and some of the best produce in the world and the best opportunity where you can make anything out of anything if you have the smarts about it or an idea.
This is The Crackling. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Growing up in a mixed family with different heritage and cultures is not uncommon to most people in Australia, but what impact does that have on a career and approach as a chef? For Adam De Silva, it's about embracing the beauty of it all and nuancing it to create the best possible eating and dining experiences. Adam, how are you?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's great to get you on the show. You're a busy man doing many things. What are you up to at the moment?
Well, lots of balls in the air. So I've got a new project in the pipeline, and it's an exciting one because it's a new restaurant in Alphington, in the suburb in Melbourne, in the suburb of Alphington. It's been on the boil for a while, and it's going to come to fruition the start of 2024. And it's a restaurant, like a wine bar, and an event space also called Decca, which is exciting because it's also in my hood, where I've grown up in, and also where I've been. And also I've got a gelati shop down the road. I've got live up the road, and my kids go to school around here. So it's all kind of gone back. I've gone to the burbs, should I say? I've left the big smoke of the CBD, and like a lot of restaurateurs now, and I guess the suburbs where it's at because I guess what COVID and what the city is, what it's done to the city.
Yeah. Well, there's lucky residents in that community because you've had a stellar career to date, and to bring all of that sort of to the local community is pretty amazing. Tell us a little bit about sort of growing up. You mentioned you sort of grew up in that area. What was things like for you as a kid, and, what role did food play?
Well, growing up in obviously Indian and Italian household where there was a bowl of pasta and a curry and rice on the table every night, and I also grew up in a butcher shop. I was born into a butcher shop, so we're talking about pork or pigs, and instead of staring there looking at toys, I used to stare at the back. I was after school, kid just staring at pigs hanging upside down, and thought that was quite scary, but it was quite normal. So that was. Yeah, so a lot of people don't know. I grew up as a butcher's son, so always around food, and I always say meat. So kind of meat runs through my veins, should I say?
Do you remember anything sort of from your father's butcher in regards to pork, like sausages or cuts or anything like that, or any stories?
Yeah, because he used to make all our own sausages. So I had a selection of them. And I think he was one of the first butchers to really like flavour sausages, because they used to just be the plain old, barbecue sausages, or beef barbecue sausages, or little thin pork sausages. But to do the Italian style sausages, which are very, look, there's a couple of butchers that I love to go to now. But do to proper traditional Italian sausage. So there's Brenta Meats in Fairfield, which is just down the road from Alphington. And there's also Nino and Joe's in Brunswick there, and they do authentic, real deal pork sausages, where kind of just brings you back to, being in Italy, eating some pork sausages, should I say.
Do you have any stories of the influence of your family, sort of cooking-wise, with such incredible sort of different cuisines and cultures as a mix there? Can you take us through some of that?
Yeah, well, my nonna, because obviously my mum migrated from Italy at a young age, and so at my nonna's house, it was full on its own kind of self-sufficient house. At the front of the house there was all fruit trees and grapevines, from the fig tree to locusts, or nespole you'd call it, the little yellow fruit, which is not very well known here, but that's what we grew up eating. There was apple trees, there was plum trees, and then out the back was a whole veggie patch ranging from beans to zucchini to pumpkins, to the chickens to prickly pears, the choco to a chicken pen, and then there was like a shed where they had the wine press, where my nonna would make press the wine, and then make her own sausages and salami. So it was just that was just kind of our playground. That was our backyard. So instead of, we weren't really playing with toys. We're kind of picking vegetables out of the ground. I reckon eating our first carrot was kind of pulling it out of the ground, and then climbing the fig tree was our kind of fun and entertainment to try and see how high we could get to grab the highest figs. We were sent up there. We know, just as you would back in the day, just sent up there free to fall off.
There were no need for helmets in those days.
No, yeah. So that was just kind of how just kind of grew up, and I just thought everyone grew up like that. Also, going back, 40 odd years ago.
Is there any sort of pork dishes that you remember from your nonna that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, every time they would make like a sauce, or even a bolognese their sauce, or just even there was always pork ribs in the sauce, and it's very quite a southern thing to do where you make a bolognese sauce, obviously using pork or pork and veal, and they would always throw the ribs of the pork in there, or even when you made meatballs, there would be the ribs of the pork, whether it's be the spare ribs and that thrown in there, and that meat was taken out, put on a plate, and then the pasta would homemade pasta, which was I remember also spinning the wheel for the pasta machine for my nonna, and eating raw gnocchi dough, because gnocchi was the first thing that I learned how to make, as a 4-year-old. Pretty much, and so that pasta was always cooked and tossed through the sauce, and then you'd eat the ribs, the pork ribs afterwards.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. So that was just kind of that's how it was, and one thing that I'd always did as a kid, and even now, I always used to eat my salad first because I didn't like eating pasta out of a dirty bowl, and this is something that just went on forever as a child. And when I look back on it, I'm like, why wouldn't I just give me another bowl after I've ate the pasta? But it was just one of those things where I think growing up, sometimes in those households where you just kind of ate off that one plate and that's it. You didn't dirty any other plates. But when you look at it now, how you eat in a restaurant, you change your plate every 5 seconds to eat something different. So that's what I do now, anyway, with my kids.
It's a good rule for kids to get them to eat salad when they're hungry before they eat.
Yeah, correct.
And the Indian side as well, you mentioned. Tell us a little bit about what that was like as a kid and the influence in the household.
Yeah, well, that was so it was big influence as well, because when we used to have family get-togethers, birthdays and all that kind of stuff, there'd be one table full of like lasagnas and stuff like that, and the other table would be full of like chili chicken and biryani and bondas, and it was just this whole, it was such a clash of cuisines, but I guess I loved eating both of them, and that's kind of just grew up, and that's kind of, I think, gave me my kind of love for, I guess, curries and Asian food, and hence why that's how Tonka was born, 10 years ago, because of that influence. And I thought, we'll just do a modern Indian restaurant. But the key difference, I guess, growing up in that Italian Indian household is that my mother used to make curries using olive oil and not ghee, which made it quite lighter, because ghee is obviously quite prevalent in Indian. Well, they like to use it all the time. Where because my mum used olive oil and because my mum used olive oil, I took that to, when I did Tonka, not to use any ghee, because we wanted to make. It was also a hard sell because we wanted people to eat Indian, and historically, when people eat Indian, it's very heavy and it can be quite stodgy or heavy. So to use that method, and that's why I called Tonka a ghee-free kitchen, because we didn't use any ghee. The only ghee we used was on naan. Brushed the naan when it came out of the tandoori oven.
When did you first sort of start to think of a career as a chef, and what were the sort of first steps that you made?
I guess I was just from a young age. I know this sound, probably cliche, but it was from a young age of just being around food that I actually just loved food, and I loved because I was given the privilege to. I mean, I was also forced, not forced into it, but it was right in front of me that I just loved food, and my nonna and my zio would always let me be involved in the cooking process, which I think is important these days. To try encourage kids. You've got young kids, I've got young kids, and to get them in the kitchen. Sometimes you got to bite your lower lip a bit because they make a lot of mess, or make them. There's a thing, but I think you got to be patient with it and get them involved because it's not even it's not as a career, but just to educate them about food and flavors and textures. So I was just always surrounded by that, and then I kind of just had this, love for it. And I thought, you know what, I think I want to cook, but I didn't realize what it was like to be a professional chef because during my schooling, I went and did work experience at different restaurants. During my school holidays, I'd go and work in a restaurant for a couple of weeks just to kind of work out whether I liked it or not. And just I went to quite a few restaurants. My first one being a restaurant that existed in Toorak Village called Viali, which is no longer there. But that was my first restaurant I worked in. And then I would do other jobs like kitchen hand jobs. And then during my year 12, I made pizzas 3 nights a week. Um, we had an old Italian guy, and I used to do that, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, and then go to school and fall asleep. But that was like kind of go for school on Monday and fall asleep. But that was kind of what I love to do. It was really cool, because my mum was like, well, you're no good at school, so might as well get you to work, and that's what she did. She sent me to work. So, and then I pretty much started my apprenticeship straight after I finished Year 12.
You're a mentor to many chefs these days, but who are the really important sort of people for you as you built your career, and what influence did they have?
Well, there was cool. Well, Jeff Lindsay and Martin Burtz were my two, I guess, greatest influences in my cooking. Because learning Asian, and obviously Andrew Gunn, who also owned Pearl at that stage with Jeff Lindsay, he was a big influence because he allowed me to grow as a chef and with my career and was really supportive of it. So and then Marty was great, and that's when I really kind of honed and learned Asian cuisine or modern Asian and Thai food. So which then I kind of lent towards that because earlier in my career I did Italian. I went and worked in Italy for a year when I was in my mid 20s, which was a pivotal time because it was just great to go overseas and work in another country where I didn't. So I understood the language, but I didn't really speak the language. But just to experience a different culture and how they just really did it over there, like because there's only really one cuisine in Italy, that you kind of learn where Australia is such a multicultural melting pot of different cuisines. So that was a pivotal moment, and then just coming back and deciding to cook Asian food because I was actually going to work. It was a choice to either work for Jeff Lindsay or work for Greg Malouf. So I was going to go down that Middle Eastern angle, but for some reason I chose Jeff Lindsay's food because I thought I'm modern Asian. I liked it. It was a hit restaurant back in the early 2000s, and yeah, I enjoyed it thoroughly. And that's kind of like I was there for 7 odd years before opening Coda.
Take us back to Italy for a moment. Do you have any stories of sort of experience that you had during your time there?
Yeah, well, I'd cooked in a few places because my Zil Mario, he organised me to go to Italy. He thought it'd be good for me, and I was like that stage where I was either like go to London or go to Italy, and I thought I'll go to Italy, and I did that, and I started in Umbria, which was great, kind of in inland, and then I ended up working on the east coast of the Adriatic in a fish restaurant, which was amazing. It was right on the beach, and had a Vespa. Lived in a small town called Loreto, which has like the second biggest church in Italy, and it was like living the whole full lifestyle. You have the pomeriggio they call in the afternoon, where you either have an afternoon nap or you go lie on the beach, or you go to the local cafe and have beers as some would do, but. That was a great experience, and it was a great. You look at it and see how times have changed, and just working six doubles a week, back then, and I think they still probably do it now in Europe, but it's totally different work ethic than what is over here.
You mentioned you spend a lot of time with Jeff Lindsay. Do you have any stories of what he's like to work with?
No, he was great. He was fantastic, very creative. It was a kind of chef that when he walked into the kitchen that you kind of got nervous about. You're always you're not I'm not on edge, but you were very nervous because you expected the best from you, and always a very really high standard, which then kind of filtered into the way that you would run a kitchen. Is in a really high standard, work clean, work, be very, very, very creative with the food. And it was a style that I liked and I inherited. It was very kind of pivotal moment. Because there's another chef that was born out of that kitchen was Nick Holloway from Nunu up in Palm Cove. We worked together for a couple of years, so yeah, it was a really and it was one of those things where you just loved going to work. Just loved because there was always something new happening. There was always some new different ingredients or new or dishes. I loved the collaboration that we had, coming together. Because I think sometimes the best the best dishes evolve out of a couple of chefs coming together and you really kind of create it together because you can give positive and fair feedback on the dish, and then that's how it kind of gets refined.
Were there any sort of pork dishes from that era in that kitchen that you remember that you could share with us?
Yeah. Well, we did a scallop and pork dish, which was quite good. It was always on the menu, an entree, seared scallops, and beautifully roasted pork belly. There's another pork dish which was fantastic. Did at long grain, where we used to steam the pork belly, prick the skin, and all the beautiful fat would ooze out of it, and then we'd put in a vinegar and a sea salt slurry, and then you would rub that all over the pork, and then just let it hang for a few days in the cool room, and then you would deep fry the piece of pork. Take the excess salt off and deep fry it, and it has the most amazing crackle in, like rock hard and infallible. It's amazing. Then we used to slice that up and toss it like in a green mango salad with either prawns or calamari or squid, and that was another way. That was another way of doing the pork. And then I guess one of my other favorite pork dishes I used to do when I first opened Coda was a suckling pig mortadella. So I used to get a whole suckling pig, debone the saddle, brine the legs, the four legs and the hind legs. Used to brine those and sell them separately. But then I used to make a mortadella mix, fill the pork, fill the saddle, roll it like a mortadella, and then steam it. And then once it's all cooked, used to just slice it like this mortadella, but it had like the outside of the whole suckling pig. So that was a great dish. And then used to make head cheese with the suckling pig head.
Amazing. You mentioned that Marty Boats as well was a big influence on you, and you mentioned a long grain dish there. He's been on the show before as well, and a real legend of the industry. What's he like to work with?
Yeah, he was good as well. He was, same thing. They're very like, what do you call it? Hard but fair, but also expected the best out of you. So there was always a high standard of just doing the best, producing the best food, um, working cleanly, because that would be the thing. Like if you worked clean as a chef and very pedantic and particular about things, then that reflected on the way you would serve the food and the food that you created. So there was very like yeah, it was great times. I think there was really it was really great times. So it's just one of those things where we achieved great food and they were great restaurants.
You've had a huge impact on Melbourne's dining landscape, and Coda and Tonka for all those years is a huge influence. What was it like getting those up and running for you? What were the challenges that you had?
Oh, they were great because we went down Flinders Lane when there was only pretty much Cumulus up the road, and there was a press club around the corner. So going back 15 years ago, when Flinders Lane wasn't really, Flinders Lane was considered not the golden mile that it is today. It was, we opened in the GFC in 2009, so we're taking a gamble back then. We took over a Greek restaurant called Mini, um, and also there was Ezard's down Flinders Lane as well back then. They were the only like four restaurants really there. And so it was it was an exciting time because it was like, I was taking the concept of coda was I was taking, I guess, the concepts of pearl and long grain, but making it more of a casual tapas style. So more like what Movida was doing. So I thought, taking making mod Asian, mod Oz food, and just making it casual and accessible and just tasty. And that's what kind of morphed into that concept. So, and then now we're just seeing the street grow. Then Chin Chin appeared, and um, we Tonka a couple of years later, and then now you got all these other restaurants like Gimlet and Kizame and Super Normal and Hazel and Grill Americano. It's just there's Chiconies. They're all there. So it's a great little strip. So it was just interesting. It's great to see how it transformed. Because I remember back in the day when Garden State Hotel was owned by Ronnie DeStasio, called Rosati's. I went there as a teenager, so to see it, that was like you never used to drive down Flinders Lane, and now it's kind of the epicenter of restaurants. Being everyone would always go. That's the mile of we'd go to dine in the city.
It's well known how important pork is to Italian cuisine. Did it weave a thread through the Tonka menu at all for you?
Yeah, we had some pork on there, but we would do, obviously there's pork belly, so we'd do something with the pork belly, whether it be roasted, um, and then also deep fried, so make it nice and crunchy, and toss it through a curry. Um, one thing I didn't do is probably do a suckling pig tandoori. That's one thing. That probably that would be, but it's it's very hard with all the fat. But but we but we also had a pork chop on the menu as well. So we'd put that on the char grill. So it had some nice thing, some sort of garam masala, and fennel and apple on it as well. So very versatile, very versatile. Carries flavour as well because it's not overpowering.
It's not all that long ago that you let go of the world of Coda and Tonka. What was that like for you? And what were the positives that have come out of that?
It was it's pretty quite can be quite emotional, also because you're leaving brands that you created and started, and it's kind of reinventing yourself again, which is very exciting. So it's kind of like gone from one thing to another, which has been fantastic, and have this opportunity in with Decca in Alphington, and then to be the just solely own that outright is fantastic and it's exciting. And I guess it's you look at other chefs and how they reinvent themselves. The McConnells and the Neil Perrys of the world kind of reinvent themselves with new restaurants. So it's exciting to be able to I think that's time for it and going to a different area and stage. So now I'm in my mid 40s, mid to I'm on the I've reached the second part of my 40s, I should say. Which makes me feel older when you start to work with people that you're old enough to be their parent. Makes you feel old. So exciting, but look, it was a bit of a sad thing that could have ended a bit more amicably, but obviously it didn't on perspective. So, but I'm looking forward to it's a new chapter in my life, which is great and exciting, and secretly glad to be out of the CBD because it's just getting harder and harder there.
Yeah, I want to touch on that because did the last couple of years have been challenging for everyone, and Melbourne, particularly in regards to restaurants, found it really tough. Did COVID have an impact on kind of the direction you wanted to take your career?
Yeah, I think it just kind of just changed how we kind of all worked and how what was happening around and recovering from COVID. As a lot of businesses have got a lot of COVID hangover with debts that they probably held off with rents and stuff like that. And also, just thinking that it's kind of you make you rethink your business because it's just getting harder and harder in hospitality with wages and food costs and rents. That how can you create a formula that is going to be successful to be able to make enough money to survive? which is I think the hardest thing, So, I think there's a different needs for people. Like people want event spaces, they don't want to pay too much money, but they want value for money. So it's a very very tight, tightrope to walk along to get that balance right.
You've been involved in so many sort of events and cooked all over the world, and it's been a real sort of key part of your career, particularly in the last decade. Is there any sort of standout event or thing that you've been part of on your travels?
Look, there's so many to list, but because they're all different. But traveling through, cooking in India was a highlight for me when I first did. I've done that, half a dozen times cooking the Australian High Commission, and I can tell you the funniest thing about going to India. My first meal when I landed there back in, I think it was 2010. I did like Asia's longest lunch outside the Grand Hyatt in Mumbai. And I got greeted by the chefs there, and then it was an Italian chef that greeted me. And the first meal, he goes, "Do you want something to eat?" Because I landed about, I think, about 11 o'clock at night. I said, "Sure." So what I ended up eating was a pizza with Parma ham, obviously pork, buffalo mozzarella on it, and drinking a glass of Chianti wine. And I'm like going, "Is this the most surreal thing where half Italian, half Indian? My first meal in India is pizza in Italian wine." So I still think that's one of my highlights, I guess, of traveling to a country of origin. So, and the funny thing is, and this might sound, people might think I'm crazy, but I was just obviously in India. I was in India last year. But one of the things I do eat the most of, and people will think I'm crazy, but the thing I eat the most in India is I eat Italian food in India because the chefs there are all from Italy, and they cook amazing Italian food. And as I said, I can't really stomach too much ghee, so I've got to be selective on how much Indian food I eat. But yeah, that's pretty. That's how I kind of operate through India.
What's it like for you cooking at these sort of big events in these different countries, sometimes representing Australia or an idea? What are the challenges and exciting parts of that?
Oh, look, it's very challenging, especially in like places like India. Asia's great. Singapore, I cooked in Singapore like every year, which is fantastic because like for Singapore, you could walk into the cool rooms there. I always cook at the Grand Hyatt, and you'd see chickens from Brazil, you see eggplant from Holland, you see tomatoes from Australia. You got oysters from Ireland and Scotland, and you got Scottish salmon. It's just really bizarre. It's like this international, like just bizarre. All the ingredients because I obviously don't grow any of it there. The challenges of say like India is that the produce is very hard. Like it's very until like they always want me to confirm a menu before I get there, and I'm like. I'm not going to confirm the menu until I see the produce itself because it can be a bit, up and down. So they're the challenges, but it's also translating your food using their produce, which is great also because there's some great produce around. Cooking in America is fantastic. I think LA and New York have a similar standard of produce that we have. Because they can grow it all year round. So America's fantastic as well. And I just think it's great just seeing different cultures, being under the skin, for example, whether it's in Hong Kong or in Fiji or being in the skin underneath in the back in the bowels of the kitchens is fantastic because meeting different people of all different cultures and seeing all different food. I really love it. It's like a kind of bit of a buzz.
You mentioned that Decca will open early into 2024. What direction are you taking the food in, given your skill sets lie in so many different cuisines?
Yeah, well, I'm taking the food direction I'm taking is more of a mod Oz bistro, and it's a broad. I'm using a broad brush with that description because I am going to have like half a dozen pastas. I'm going to make my own pasta, but I'm going to have a char grill there, charcoal grill there to do some meat and seafood, but also just keep it just really, you know, just homely, should I say, and accessible. Where it's going to be not too complicated because also I've got want to cater for the residents and for the suburbs, but just keep the food simple and tasty. There'll be some little splashes of my Asian through it as well, because when you define modern Australian is all cuisine. So I'm just going to cook food that I still like to eat. So it might have a more of a vein of, say, Kodo in it with a pasta section. So yeah, my kids are looking forward to it because they're like, Dad, we'll come and eat some, come and eat your pasta every night. Come and eat your bolognese. So, I'm going to have my kids that which they love the most. That's going to feature somewhere on, the specials board or the kids menu. My bolognese, should I say? So things like that. But just simple, honest food is where I'm at. We're just using restraint, but food that people want to eat once a week. I want to become a weekly restaurant, but also obviously, have a bit of my kind of Asian touch through it.
It sounds amazing. Well, I can't wait to see what's going on there. You had such an amazing impact over, a couple of decades in Melbourne there. What do you love about what you do?
I love what I do because I just think I've been fortunate also in my career to have so many different experiences and opportunities where I just think, I love it because we're constantly evolving. And I think we live in one of the best food countries in the world. I don't know, you probably don't believe it, but after traveling the world, I always say the reason why I always came back to Australia to do a business and to cook is because we have the best standard of living and some of the best produce in the world and the best opportunity where you can make anything out of anything if you, have the smarts about it or an idea. Where I find other countries, once you're kind of maybe stuck in a kitchen, it's very hard to progress to become, say, a restaurateur and own your own business and stuff, where I think in Australia we've got this opportunity, which we're blessed with.
Yeah, agree totally. Well, Adam, as always, it's an absolute pleasure to catch up with you and look forward to seeing what you do there with Decca. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is The Crackling, a Deep in the Weeds production in partnership with PorkStar. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we catch up with some of Australia's best chefs and pork producers to discover what makes Australian pork so special.